Hello everyone. When we think of Texas, we often picture a land of boundless opportunity, a booming economy, and a strong independent spirit. It's the Lone Star State, a symbol of growth and prosperity. But what if I told you that behind this powerful image, there's another story? A story that doesn't always make the headlines, but one that is deeply felt by thousands of people every single day. Today, we're going to take an honest look at some Texas cities that are facing real significant struggles, peeling back the layers of that strong reputation to see the reality on the ground. This isn't about criticizing or casting judgment, it's about understanding. We're going to journey through communities where daily life is shaped not by the boom, but by the persistent challenges of crime, poverty, and limited opportunities. These are places where families are working hard but finding it difficult to get ahead, where the promise of a better future feels just out of reach. We'll explore the complex factors that contribute to these issues, from economic shifts to historical circumstances, giving a voice to the hidden struggles within one of America's most celebrated states. So, I ask you to join me with an open mind and an open heart. Listen closely to these stories. Think about the people who live in these neighborhoods, the children growing up in these environments. This is a chance to reflect on the realities that exist beyond the gleaming skylines and optimistic news reports. What would you do if this was your community? What does it truly mean to thrive, and who is being left behind? Let's begin. Our journey begins in the Texas Panhandle, in Amarillo. At first glance, it feels like classic Texas. Wide open skies, a sense of calm, and a pace of life that seems a world away from the state's sprawling megacities. You see the iconic Cadillac Ranch, you feel the history of Route 66, and you might think this is a place untouched by the pressures of modern urban life. It presents a picture of tranquility, a quiet corner of the state where things are simple, straightforward. But when you look closer, when you start to peel back that calm appearance, a different picture emerges. The data tells a story that the quiet streets might not. Amarillo consistently reports crime rates that are significantly higher than the national average. This isn't just about statistics on a page, it's about a feeling of unease that can permeate a community. It's the story of families who worry about their children's safety, of small business owners who take extra precautions, of a trust that has been eroded over time. What's behind this? Part of the answer lies in the city's economy. For many residents, Amarillo feels economically stagnant. While other parts of Texas are experiencing explosive growth, the opportunities here feel more limited. The jobs that are available often don't offer the kind of wages that allow for real upward mobility. People feel stuck, working hard just to maintain, with little hope of getting ahead. It's a quiet desperation that simmers just beneath the surface. This lack of dynamic job growth creates a cycle that's hard to break. Young, ambitious people who grow up in Amarillo often feel they have to leave to find better opportunities, to build a career, to chase their dreams. This brain drain further depletes the local talent pool and makes it harder for the city to attract new industries and diversify its economic base. It leaves behind a population that is older and often struggling with fewer resources. The result is a city of contrasts. It's a place with a proud heritage and a strong sense of community. But it's also a place where that community is under strain. The limited job mobility means that for many, the American dream of working your way up the ladder feels like a distant fantasy. You might have a job, but is it a career? Can you build a future on it? For too many in Amarillo, the answer is a frustrating and resounding no. So we have to ask ourselves, what happens to a community when hope begins to fade, when the path forward seems blocked? Amarillo's story isn't one of outright collapse, but of a slow, grinding struggle. It's the challenge of maintaining optimism in the face of persistent crime, and an economy that seems to have left you behind. It's a paradox hidden in plain sight, under the vast panhandle sky. Now, let's travel southeast to Beaumont, a city that should, on paper, be a powerhouse. Nestled near the Gulf Coast, it's home to one of the nation's busiest ports and a massive industrial sector centered around oil and petrochemicals. The skyline is dotted with refineries, and the waterways are filled with ships. This is the engine room of the Texas economy, a place that literally fuels the nation. You'd expect wealth, prosperity, and opportunity to flow from such a vital hub. But the reality for many who call Beaumont home is starkly different from that industrial might. Despite the immense wealth generated by its port and refineries, the city struggles with a deeply entrenched and persistent level of poverty. The poverty rate here is alarmingly high, well above both the state and national averages. You can drive just a few blocks away from the industrial complexes and find neighborhoods where the struggle is visible on every corner. This economic decline has been a slow and painful process. As the oil industry has gone through its characteristic booms and busts, and as automation has changed the nature of industrial work, the stable, high-paying jobs that once built a strong middle class have become harder to find. What's left is a community grappling with the consequences, underfunded schools, crumbling infrastructure, and a sense of being left behind by the very industries that define their city. This economic hardship is compounded by serious concerns about safety. Beaumont consistently ranks as one of the more dangerous cities in Texas, with crime rates that cause real anxiety for its residents. This isn't just an abstract number, it affects everyday decisions. Do you let your kids play outside after dark? Do you feel safe walking in your own neighborhood? When a community is grappling with both economic despair and a fear for personal safety, it creates a heavy burden. The question becomes, where is the wealth going? It's a question you hear whispered in diners and on front porches throughout the city. The profits from the port and the refineries don't seem to be trickling down to create broad-based prosperity for the people who live in their shadow. Instead, there's a growing divide between the industrial machine and the community that surrounds it, a community that deals with the environmental impact without always reaping the economic benefits. Beaumont's story is a cautionary tale about the promises of industrialization. It shows that having a powerful economic engine isn't enough. If that engine doesn't lift up the entire community, if the opportunities aren't accessible to everyone, and if the wealth it generates doesn't translate into safe streets and good schools, then what is it all for? For the people of Beaumont, it's a daily struggle to find hope amidst the smokestacks. Our next stop takes us to North Texas, near the border with Oklahoma, to a city that often flies under the radar, Wichita Falls. It's not a place you hear about in the national news, and it doesn't have the glamour of Dallas or the cultural cachet of Austin. It's a mid-sized city that feels, in many ways, like a throwback to a different era of America. It has a solid, unassuming character, a place where people know their neighbors and life moves at a steady pace. But this under-the-radar status hides some significant challenges. For a city of its size, Wichita Falls grapples with a surprisingly high crime rate. When you adjust for population, its crime statistics are often on par with or even exceed those of much larger metropolitan areas. This creates a sense of unease that contradicts the city's quiet, small-town feel. It's a problem that residents are keenly aware of, even if the rest of the state isn't paying attention. A major factor shaping the city's destiny is its economic structure. The economy of Wichita Falls is heavily dependent on one major employer, Shepherd Air Force Base. The base is the lifeblood of the community, providing thousands of jobs and pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into the local economy each year. It provides stability, and the city is rightfully proud of its connection to the military. However, this heavy reliance on a single entity creates a precarious situation. The fortunes of the entire city are tied to decisions made far away in Washington, D.C. The constant threat of base realignments or closures, known as BRAC, looms over the community like a dark cloud. If the base were to ever downsize or close, the economic impact on Wichita Falls would be nothing short of catastrophic. This dependency stifles economic diversification and innovation. This economic vulnerability limits the opportunities available to those not connected to the base. If you're not in the military, a civilian contractor, or in a business that directly serves the base population, finding a well-paying career path can be incredibly difficult. The private sector is relatively small, and the city has struggled to attract new large-scale employers that could provide alternative sources of employment and economic growth. So, Wichita Falls exists in a state of quiet uncertainty. It's a community held together by the steady presence of the Air Force Base, but also held back by it. The challenge for the city is to find a way to build a future that isn't solely reliant on a single pillar. How do you create a vibrant, diverse economy while also honoring the institution that has sustained you for so long? For the people of Wichita Falls, it's a question that defines their past, their present, and their uncertain future. We now head deep into the heart of West Texas, to the Permian Basin and the city of Odessa. This is a place defined by one thing above all else: oil. When the price of oil is high, Odessa is a boomtown in the truest sense of the word. Money flows like, well, oil. Trucks clog the highways, hotels are booked solid, and workers from all over the country flock here, chasing paychecks that are unheard of in other industries. The energy is frantic, electric, a modern-day gold rush. But this boom and bust cycle is a double-edged sword, and Odessa has the scars to prove it. When the inevitable bust comes, and the price of oil plummets, the city's economy grinds to a halt. The workers who flocked in for the high wages disappear overnight, leaving behind empty apartments and abandoned projects. Businesses that were thriving just months before are forced to lay off staff or shut their doors completely. It's an economic roller coaster that makes long-term planning almost impossible for both the city and its residents. This volatility has profound social consequences. During the booms, the city is overwhelmed. Infrastructure is strained, housing becomes unaffordably expensive, and the rapid influx of a largely transient, single male workforce can lead to a spike in crime. Odessa frequently records some of the highest crime rates in the state, a direct consequence of the social instability that comes with the boom. Life can feel chaotic and unsafe, even when the money is good. And for the people who call Odessa home year-round, this cycle offers no real long-term security. You might make a great living for a year or two, but there's always the fear that the bottom will drop out. It's difficult to build a life, to buy a home, to put down roots when you know your entire livelihood depends on the volatile global energy market. This creates a pervasive sense of anxiety and prevents the development of a stable, cohesive community. The city's identity is so intertwined with oil that there has been little incentive to diversify the economy. Why invest in other, less lucrative sectors when you can ride the wave of the next boom? This lack of diversification leaves Odessa incredibly vulnerable. It's a city perpetually chasing the next high, without a safety net for the inevitable low. The focus is on short-term gain, not long-term sustainability. Odessa's story is the story of a city riding a tiger. The ride is exhilarating and profitable while it lasts, but you can never get off, and you're always one misstep away from disaster. For the residents, the challenge is how to find stability in a place that is defined by its instability. How do you build a permanent home in a boomtown, knowing that the bust is always just around the corner? Let's journey back to the high plains of West Texas, to Lubbock. To many outsiders, Lubbock is known for two things: Texas Tech University and its famous musical son, Buddy Holly. It projects a vibrant image as a major college town, with the energy and enthusiasm that a large university brings. The sea of red and black on game days, the bustling campus and the thriving student life create an impression of a city that is dynamic and forward-looking. But if you step outside the orbit of the university, you find a different Lubbock. The city has long struggled with a persistent, systemic poverty that affects a significant portion of its population. The poverty rate is stubbornly high, and in many neighborhoods, the opportunities that seem so abundant on campus are nowhere to be found. It's a city of two halves, the thriving world of academia and the struggling community that surrounds it. The economy outside of the university and the related healthcare sector is limited. While Texas Tech is a fantastic economic engine, the opportunities it creates don't always trickle down or spread out into the wider community in the form of diverse, high-paying jobs. For residents who are not employed by the university or the medical center, career paths are often restricted to low-wage service jobs, agriculture, or manufacturing, with little room for advancement. This creates a paradox where the city is educating thousands of bright young minds, only to see many of them leave after graduation in search of better job markets. Lubbock invests in their education, but it often fails to capture that talent and translate it into local economic growth. This perpetuates the cycle of limited opportunities for the permanent residents who are not part of the university ecosystem. The social and economic lines in Lubbock are often sharply drawn. You can literally cross a street and go from a neighborhood of well-maintained homes and prosperity to one of visible decay and struggle. This division is not just economic, it's also geographic and often racial, with minority communities disproportionately affected by poverty and lack of investment. It's a segregation of opportunity that is deeply embedded in the city's fabric. Lubbock's challenge is to bridge this divide. How can the city leverage the immense asset of a major research university to create broad-based prosperity for all its citizens? How can it build an economy that offers a future not just to its students, but to the families who have called this place home for generations? Until it can answer those questions, Lubbock will remain a city with a vibrant, youthful face, but an older, more troubled heart. We now arrive in Houston, the largest city in Texas and a true global powerhouse. It's the energy capital of the world, home to a world-renowned medical center, and one of the most diverse cities in the United States. The skyline is a testament to its economic might, a collection of gleaming skyscrapers built on ambition and oil money. On the surface, Houston is the embodiment of the Texas boom, a place of immense wealth, opportunity, and endless growth. But for a city with such incredible economic strength, Houston is plagued by deep and persistent problems. One of the most significant is crime. Despite its corporate prowess, the city consistently struggles with high rates of violent crime that far exceed national averages. This isn't a problem confined to a few bad neighborhoods. It's a citywide issue that affects residents from all walks of life and creates a pervasive sense of insecurity in a city that should feel triumphant. Alongside the wealth, there's staggering poverty. The economic prosperity is not shared equally. Houston has vast pockets of deep poverty, where residents are cut off from the opportunities that the city supposedly offers. You can be just a few miles from the headquarters of a Fortune 500 company and find communities lacking basic services, with failing schools and limited access to healthcare. This inequality is stark and visible, a daily reminder of the city's contradictions. Many of Houston's challenges are magnified by its unique approach to urban planning, or lack thereof. As the largest city in America without formal zoning laws, Houston's growth has been chaotic and sprawling. This has led to a car-dependent culture, endless traffic congestion, and a landscape where industrial sites can be located right next to residential neighborhoods. This lack of planning disproportionately affects low-income communities who often bear the brunt of environmental pollution and lack access to green spaces and reliable public transit. The city's vulnerability to natural disasters, particularly hurricanes and flooding, further exacerbates these inequalities. When storms hit, it is inevitably the poorest neighborhoods, often built in low-lying areas with inadequate drainage, that suffer the most. The cycle of flooding, destruction, and slow recovery traps families in a state of perpetual crisis, while more affluent areas often recover much more quickly. Houston's story is a powerful paradox. It is a city of incredible dynamism and opportunity, yet it is also a city of extreme inequality and vulnerability. It proves that economic growth alone does not solve social problems. The challenge for Houston is immense: how to manage its explosive growth in a way that is equitable and sustainable, and how to ensure that the city's incredible wealth is used to lift up all of its residents, not just a select few. Let's head north to Dallas, the glittering heart of North Texas. Dallas is a city that prides itself on its business-friendly environment, its corporate headquarters, and its sophisticated cosmopolitan image. It's a hub for finance, technology, and logistics, with a gleaming skyline and luxurious shopping districts that project an image of success and prosperity. If Houston is about industrial might, Dallas is about corporate polish. It's where deals are made and fortunes are built. But, beneath this polished veneer of success lies a city grappling with some serious social fractures. Crime remains a persistent and high-profile issue. While progress has been made in some areas, violent crime rates continue to be a major concern for residents and a challenge for city leaders. The headlines about crime often clash with the city's desired image as a safe and prosperous place to live and work, creating a tension that is felt across the community. One of the most visible signs of this struggle is the growing issue of homelessness. As the city has become more expensive and as inequality has widened, the number of people experiencing homelessness has surged. Encampments under freeways and in public parks have become a common sight, a stark and public manifestation of the city's affordable housing crisis and the gaps in its social safety net. It's a human crisis playing out in the shadows of corporate towers. This is all tied to the central issue of growing inequality. Dallas is a city of haves and have-nots, and the gap between them is widening. While North Dallas and its surrounding suburbs are home to incredible wealth, South Dallas is plagued by decades of disinvestment, poverty, and lack of opportunity. This division is not just economic, it's a stark racial and geographic line that has defined the city for generations. The city's economic success has, in some ways, made these problems worse. The influx of high-paying jobs has driven up the cost of living, particularly housing, pushing out long-time residents and making it harder for low- and middle-income families to survive. Gentrification is reshaping neighborhoods, but it's not always lifting up the existing community. In many cases, it's displacing it. Dallas represents the cost of a certain kind of success. It shows that a booming business climate doesn't automatically translate to a healthy community for all. The city's challenge is to reconcile its corporate success with its social responsibilities. How can it create a city where the prosperity is shared, where a rising tide actually lifts all boats, and where a person's zip code doesn't determine their destiny? It's a question that will define the future of this iconic Texas city. Our journey now takes us to South Texas, to the beautiful and historic city of San Antonio. With its world-famous River Walk, the historic Alamo, and a rich cultural heritage, San Antonio has a reputation as one of America's friendliest and most charming cities. It's a top tourist destination, a place that welcomes millions of visitors with a warm embrace. The vibe is relaxed, festive, and deeply rooted in its unique Tejano culture. But for many of the people who live and work here, this friendly image masks a harsh economic reality. San Antonio is a city of stagnant wages. The economy is heavily reliant on tourism, hospitality, and the military, sectors that are not known for providing high-paying jobs with significant growth potential. Many residents find themselves working full-time, often in multiple jobs, but still struggling to make ends meet in a city where the cost of living is slowly rising. This leads to one of the city's biggest challenges, a very high poverty rate, particularly for a city of its size. San Antonio is one of the poorest large cities in the United States. This poverty is not confined to one small area. It is widespread and multi-generational, trapping families in a cycle that is incredibly difficult to escape. The charm of the Riverwalk feels a world away from the daily struggles in the city's sprawling west and south side barrios. The result is slow economic mobility. In San Antonio, the American dream of your children having a better life than you did feels particularly elusive. Studies on economic mobility have often ranked San Antonio near the bottom among major U.S. cities, meaning a child born into a low-income family has a very low statistical chance of climbing into the upper-income brackets. The economic ladder seems to be missing its lower rungs. The city's leadership is aware of these problems and has launched initiatives aimed at workforce development and attracting better-paying industries like tech and cybersecurity. However, these efforts face an uphill battle against decades of economic patterns. The challenge is to transform an economy built on low-wage service jobs into one that can provide sustainable, family-supporting careers for its nearly 1.5 million residents. San Antonio can feel like a velvet trap. It's a city that is comfortable, familiar, and culturally rich, which makes it a place people love and don't want to leave. Yet that very comfort can mask the lack of economic opportunity that keeps so many of its families from getting ahead. The city's friendly face hides a deep-seated struggle, a challenge to turn its cultural wealth into economic prosperity for all. For our final stop, we travel to the southernmost tip of Texas, to the Rio Grande Valley and the city of Pharr. This is a city you may not have heard of, but it is at the epicenter of many of the state's most complex challenges. Located right on the U.S.-Mexico border, Pharr is a critical hub for international trade, with a major port of entry that sees billions of dollars in goods cross its bridge each year. Despite this vital economic role, Pharr is one of the poorest cities in the entire nation. The poverty rate here is staggering, with a huge percentage of its residents living below the poverty line. This isn't a recent development, it's a chronic condition rooted in a long history of economic isolation, limited educational opportunities, and a regional economy based on low-wage agriculture and retail jobs. The median household income in Pharr is exceptionally low, a fraction of the state and national averages. For families here, life is a constant struggle for the basics: food, housing, healthcare. The immense wealth that crosses the Pharr-Reynosa International Bridge every day seems to pass right through the community without leaving a significant impact on the local population's quality of life. The city's struggles are compounded by the unique pressures of a border community. It deals with issues of immigration, federal law enforcement, and the complexities of a binational economy on a daily basis. resources are often stretched thin, and the national debate over border policy has a very real and immediate impact on the lives of the people who live here. They are on the front lines of a national issue, yet often feel forgotten by the rest of the country. Limited opportunities are the defining reality for many residents. For young people growing up in FAR, the path to a prosperous future is not always clear. While the community is resilient and family bonds are strong, the lack of high-paying jobs and limited access to higher education forces many to leave the region to find work or to resign themselves to a life of low-wage labor. FAR's story is one of profound resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. It is a community that plays a crucial role in the nation's economy, but reaps few of the rewards. It highlights the deep and persistent poverty that marks much of the Rio Grande Valley and asks a difficult question: what is our collective responsibility to communities that are so vital to our economy, yet are left so far behind? We've journeyed across Texas, from the Panhandle to the Gulf Coast, from the big cities to the border. We've seen that behind the headlines of economic booms and endless growth, there are real people and real communities facing profound challenges. These stories of crime, poverty, and inequality are not meant to diminish the spirit of Texas, but to paint a more complete and honest picture of the state. These are not just statistics, they are the lived realities for millions of our fellow Americans. It forces us to ask, what does opportunity truly mean if it's not accessible to everyone? Now I want to turn the question to you. What do you think? As we reflect on the struggles in cities like Beaumont, Odessa, and FAR, what do you see as the path forward? Are these issues of personal responsibility, or are they systemic problems that require a collective response from government, industry, and citizens alike? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a respectful and constructive conversation about what can be done to help these communities not just survive, but truly thrive. Your perspective is a valuable part of this discussion. These are the kinds of stories we are committed to telling. Honest, in-depth looks at the challenges facing American cities today. If you believe in the importance of this kind of journalism and want to see more, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. By doing so, you help us continue to shine a light on the stories that need to be told and the questions that need to be asked. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to look beyond the surface.